Didn't realize at the time, and what Kevin had to learn the hard way, is we were breaking an unwritten and unspoken rule of show business. And if I say it, you'll know that I'm telling you the truth. The rule is that no matter what you do in your artistic expression, you are never, ever allowed to upset.
They attempted to cancel the greatest comedian of our time. Netflix employees staged a walkout, Twitter went into a frenzy, and the media rushed to declare his career finished. But Dave Chappelle refused to back down. The moment he stepped back on stage changed everything. Here's what really went down. Dave Chappelle isn't just a comedian, he's a cultural icon, one who once turned down $50 and million just to stay true to his principles. That alone speaks volumes about the man behind the mic. So when he decided to challenge woke culture, the world braced itself for something truly groundbreaking.
I knew that I was the biggest Jim Carrey fan in the world. Now, I'm not going to go all into it, but Jim Carrey is talented in a way that you can't practice or rehearse. What a God-given talent. I was fascinated with him. And Norm knew that. And he called me up and he goes, Dave, he says, I'm doing a movie with Jim Carrey. Do you want to meet him? And I said, fuck, yes, I do. And it was the first time I could remember since my father died being excited. And the movie was called Man on the Moon. I didn't know any of this. And in this movie, Jim Carrey was playing another comedian I admired, the late, great Andy Kaufman. Yes, and Jim Carrey was so immersed in that role that from the moment he woke up to the time he went to bed at night, he would live his life as Andy Kaufman. I didn't know that. When they said cut, this nigga was still Andy Kaufman. So much so that everybody on the crew called him Andy. I didn't know any of that. I just went there to meet him, and when he walked into the room where we were supposed to meet, I screamed, Jim Carrey! And everyone said, no! Call him Andy. And I didn't understand. And then he came over and he was acting weird. I didn't know he was acting like Andy Kaufman. Just like, hey, how you doing? And I was like, hello. Andy? Now, in hindsight, how fucking lucky am I that I got to see one of the greatest artists of my time immersed in one of his most challenging processes ever. Very lucky to have seen that. But as it was happening, I was very disappointed. Because I wanted to meet Jim Carrey, and I had to pretend this nigga was Andy Kaufman all afternoon. And he was clearly Jim Carrey. I could look at him and I could see he was Jim Carrey. Anyway, I say all that to say, that's how trans people make me feel.
It all began with his Netflix special, The Closer. Chappelle opened with what seemed like a harmless story about meeting Jim Carrey on the set of Man on the Moon. Carrey was so deeply immersed in his role as Andy Kaufman that he refused to break character. Chappelle, a longtime Jim Carrey fan, had hoped to meet his idol, but instead he got Andy Kaufman. This seemingly lighthearted anecdote set the stage for what would become one of the most controversial comedy specials in history. Then came the punchline that sent social media into a frenzy. That is how trans people make me feel. Just a few simple words, but they struck like lightning. The backlash was instant. Netflix employees staged walkouts, activists demanded the special's removal, and opinion pieces flooded the internet, branding Chappelle's words as hate speech. But instead of backing down, Chappelle did something unexpected. He stood his ground. In his follow-up appearances, he argued that modern society confuses discomfort with actual harm. Just because you are offended, he said, does not mean you are right. That statement became a rallying cry for comedians tired of walking on eggshells.
I didn't realize at the time, and what Kevin had to learn the hard way, is we were breaking an unwritten and unspoken rule of show business. And if I say it, you'll know that I'm telling you the truth. The rule is that no matter what you do in your artistic expression, you are never, ever allowed to upset the alphabet people. You know who I mean. Those people that took 20% of the alphabet for themselves. I'd say the letters, but I don't want to conjure their anger. It's too late now. I'm talking about them L's and them B's and them G's and the T's. G's.
His take on what he calls the alphabet people hit a particularly sensitive nerve. Chappelle pointed out that the various groups under the LGBTQ umbrella aren't actually one unified movement, but rather separate letters sharing the same car. This sharp observation shed light on the complexities within identity politics, realities that many would rather ignore.
People be surprised. I have friends, all kinds of letters. Everybody loves me, and I love everybody. I got friends who are L's, I got friends who are B's, and I got friends who are G's.
The brilliance of Chappelle's approach lies in his masterful storytelling. He doesn't just crack jokes, he crafts narratives that challenge you to think.
I watch sports, I be thinking about, think about, okay, say LeBron James changed his gender. You know what I mean? Okay, can he stay in the NBA, or, because he's a woman, does he have to go to the WNBA where he will score 840 points a game?
Take his bit about LeBron James hypothetically changing his gender. On the surface, it might seem controversial, but look closer and you'll see it raises real questions about fairness and equality. Questions that few dare to tackle in mainstream discourse.
You know, you hear all those letters together all the time, LBGT, and you think it's just one big movement. It's not. All those letters are their own movement. They just travel in the same car together. And my guess is,
what sets Chappelle apart is his unique ability to find humor in life's complexities.
does it actually mean to be equal? You know what I mean? Like, if women are actually equal to men, then there would be no WNBA, would there? You would just be good enough to play in the NBA with us. Or, here's another idea that's gonna be very controversial. You could shut the fuck up.
When discussing Caitlyn Jenner winning Woman of the Year, Chappelle doesn't mock her identity. Instead, he highlights the irony, how someone can win such an honor in their very first year, while others spend a lifetime striving for it.
Caitlyn Jenner, whom I've met, wonderful person, Caitlyn Jenner was voted Woman of the Year. Her first year as a woman. Ain't that something? Beat every bitch in Detroit, she's better than all of you.
This distinction is key to understanding his style of comedy.
I had a period, ain't that something? Oh, I'd be mad as shit if I was a woman. I'd be mad if I was me. If I was in a BET Awards sitting there and they're like, and the winner for Nigger of the Year, Eminem, my man.
His comparison between Rachel Dolezal and transgender individuals highlights his nuanced approach.
White black bitch that's in the news all the time. Rachel Dolezal. She always says that. She's a white woman, but then she dressed up like a nigga and shot her way up to the very top of blackness. And I always wanted to meet her just so I could understand. I just wanted to like have dinner with her so I could just look in her eyes and call her a nigger to her face. The fuck is that bitch talking about? I identify black. That is trans talk, lady. Stop biting.
While he may not fully grasp either situation, he acknowledges the profound difference between someone merely claiming an identity and those who undergo life-altering changes to live authentically.
The difference between her and a trans is I believe transgenders. I don't understand them either, but I know they mean what they say. Them niggas cut their dicks off. That's all the proof I need. I've never seen somebody just throw their dick away. Don't need it.
This distinction showcases Chappelle's ability to think critically while maintaining his sharp comedic edge. His critics often overlook his deeper message. He isn't targeting any particular group. Instead, he's challenging a society that demands absolute acceptance while leaving no room for discussion or understanding. As he puts it, "I do not understand all of this, but that does not mean I have to be angry about it." This sentiment reveals a far more nuanced perspective than his critics are willing to admit.
I feel bad for teas, but they're so confusing. And it's not all my fault. I feel like they need to take some responsibility for my joke.
Mainstream media tried to paint him as a bigot, but they overlooked his consistent message. Respect doesn't mean something can't be joked about. In fact, the ability to laugh together might be the first step toward real understanding. This philosophy has defined his career, from Chappelle's show to his latest stand-up specials. But what truly unsettled woke culture was Chappelle's absolute refusal to apologize. When challenged about his jokes, he simply stated, "I'm not saying these things to be mean, I'm saying them because they are funny, and if you can't see the humor, maybe the problem isn't the joke." This unapologetic stance became a blueprint for others facing similar backlash.